me joining the party. Now, does he look guilty or does he look proud? Welcome, Nigel.
Thank you. One of the best assets the party has, Pat. Right. Who am I? I was the chairman of UKIP Brighton and Hove for 6 years, and I was asked, would I like to take the job? And I said, well, look, someone's got to do it, and we've got to trust each other, so I'm going to go and do it. And before long, we were having quite a big impact. But UKIP Brighton and Hove, very tricky place for us. A lot of people said, you don't stand a chance. But you know what we did? We went out there and we tried. And you've heard the saying, when you give up trying, you failed. As long as you're still trying, you haven't failed. So I'm still trying. And you might say, well, why didn't I leave and go to the Brexit Party? I don't believe in the Brexit Party. I don't like the name Brexit. Brexit is an EU originated term for UK independence, which is what I'm after. And I was also very sad to see the back of Nigel Farage, especially when it had lots of arrows in it, because a lot of people within UKIP were shooting behind him in his back while he was doing heroic work for us. And I thought, do you know what? Some of these people, I think they're actually spies, saboteurs from other parties. People who are deliberately behaving ridiculously, joining us, and then once they're in, saying ridiculous things for the media. And I thought, well, do you know what? I've got a feeling these things are rigged. And as time's gone by, I've realised more and more things are rigged. I'm actually the spokesman for housing, which is one of the most difficult subjects, because every time you go into one area, you find a whole lot of people and you think, you know, that's absolutely right. There shouldn't be development in their area because they'll get strangers coming in and they're already packed. But then you find other people saying, yeah, but I need a job on a building site and my children haven't got anywhere to go. So you've got competing interests. But there's some basic fundamental fact. We've got 2 million people on the waiting list for social housing. Now, if we built 200,000 a year, for 10 years, that's 2 million homes. Right, okay, they might not all live alone. But the point about the waiting list is those are desperate people. There's a whole lot of other people who'd like to go on the waiting list, but they've given up hope. So 10 years at 200,000, maybe we'd solve the problem. Not while we're bringing in 500,000 a year. Right, so the first thing we've got to do is stop people coming in. And then we can start caring for our people. This business of housing is not about housing, it's about homes. These people are in terrible circumstances. Back in 2010, when I was standing for the first time against Caroline Lucas, by the way, there's 30,000 students in the University of Sussex who will vote for her, and 12,000 from the University of Brighton, all in the same constituency. So I knew I was going to have a struggle. But it was very high profile, so it had to have somebody who could talk there, and so I did my duty. The point about all this is everything is rigged against us. But what have we got in our favour? Well, for the first thing, we're not left and we're not right. We've been hopping on one leg or hopping on the other for years. It hasn't done the country any good at all. What we need is unity. We must have unity. We are one big family, and we are the party who cares about us. You may have noticed that the right-wing parties, so-called, the Conservatives, who are globalists, the EU section are, and then the Labour Party, the leftists, they all believe in big lumps of people, great chunks of people, all these wonderful consumers or unions, and we don't. We believe in each individual. We believe that each individual is important, and we believe in that person's rights and responsibilities, because freedom and responsibility come together. So we're interested in promoting the power of the individual and getting the government out of their way, where we don't want them in the way, and having the government there to look after them when they need looking after. For instance, defending them against an enemy, or, well, what we'd say is we want them to get out of the way while they're pulling their weight, and when they can't pull their weight, we'll help them. Okay? So we've got a wonderful message that applies to everybody. How can we get it out there? Why should we get it out there? Well, first of all, it's a way of holding people to account. We can say, hold on a minute, with these waspy pensioners who had money stolen from them by a thief? No, the government. Who weren't informed properly about the way things should be done, they were let down terribly. And even the people who came on the Windrush, they were promised things and then they were let down and deported. They're not keeping their word, these governments. They're lying and cheating and rigging things. Look at the housing market. That's been rigged in favour of the big developers and leaving a whole section of people abandoned. And we're looking into coming up with new sets of rules that will solve the problem of the people who have been abandoned at the bottom of the property ladder. They can't get up there. Good, sensible people with reasonable, good jobs, nurses, ambulance people, firemen, even doctors, junior doctors, they can't get enough money to save for a deposit, so they're stuck renting. And people say, oh, that doesn't matter, why shouldn't they rent? Well, I'll tell you why. When they can't work anymore, who's going to pay their rent? Who's going to house them? Well, the government will have to. Or they'll starve and be on the street. Now, that's not a sensible way to proceed, but if we can help them buy a house, when they get older, they'll have somewhere to live, and with their pension, they'll be fine. They won't cost us a lot of money. So we've got to find a way to help the people get on the bottom rung of the ladder. There are three main reasons why there isn't that piece of the ladder isn't there anymore. But if we set a new set of rules, I can't go into it in too much detail because it's still being considered by our policy department, but this new set of rules about how to buy a house, we will accumulate an enormous amount of support because there's lots of young and middle-aged people out there who are desperate to buy their own home and be secure. But they can't. There's no way. They look at it and they say there's no hope. That's why people aren't getting married and having babies, because they can't get a nest. And we could help that just by changing the rules, not by spending government money. We just set a new set of rules and put it out there, and private enterprise will come in and supply them with modular houses built to a high standard like the Parker Morris standards of the 50s. So this is the standard. It has to be at least this good. This is a way of making it accessible to you. Bang, we can help to solve that problem. But all this is dependent on shutting the door. Another thing, these people coming over on their boats. I thought, isn't that amazing? All these people organising to bring them over on the boats. And I thought, well, I wonder if it's Iran behind it, palling up with Russia and China as part of a long-term invasion of Europe. Maybe they're sending people over here. And I thought, yeah, maybe, but yeah, there's no evidence for it. But these people are still coming. So what's happening? Oh, our government's given money to the French. They've promised there's only going to be 10,000 a year. Oh, my God, there's huge numbers coming over illegally. Wonder why that's possible. How can that possibly be possible? Is our government a bunch of fools and idiots? I know, you know what? I used to think, yeah, oh, what a bunch of bozos. But I actually finally came to the conclusion, do you know what? I've just realised I'm not using the mic. It's rigged again. I actually do believe in my heart of hearts that there's somebody in the House of Lords, somebody who's got lots of money probably accumulated on a crooked way, who's helping this business going along, paying for the little boats for these poor refugees coming across. Hang on, they're not that poor. They've just paid $5,000 to get on a dinghy. Oh, do you think that's possible? Well, I've got a way of getting rid of the boats. I've thought of a simple answer. Instead of these rich people who support the EU, are globalists, possibly linked to Biden, all these people who are trying to rig the market against us, instead of paying for the little boats, why don't they just hire a ferry? Maybe they could get one from Nicola Sturgeon and take it across there to Calais and bring them all over in one go. Why bother with fiddling about with little boats, pretending it's not crooked? I'm sorry, I've come to the conclusions that the whole thing is rigged. The local elections are rigged, the way the councils work, the county councils, it's all people, they've got their feet under the table and they're staying there. And do you know what it is? It's an insult not just to me, but all my family, everybody I know, you and everybody you know. It's an insult to us because they're treating us like peasants, like we don't matter and we don't count. And our big message is, do you know, I was always trouble. They couldn't throw me out of school because my results were good. So they picked on me for having long hair. It wasn't even touching my collar. I said, no, it's not breaking out school rules. Anyway, there was a big battle. And then my dad took us all to Australia. So he got a top job out there. He was an architect. So that rescued me. But no, I've always stood up for the ordinary person. And I wouldn't let bullies bully anyone in the playground either. I stood up for them. And I think we've got to do that now. I'm about to finish. But I want to talk about two things. My dad was a navigator during the war. And he used to fly out over enemy territory, dropping aluminium foil out the plane to try and attract the night fighters to them so the mainstream could go through. My dad was a wonderful chap. He said, whatever you do, Nigel, don't get involved with politics. They're all snakes. Not all of them. Present company accepted. Sir John Redwood, I like Sir John Redwood. I can't help it, I'm sorry. He's a Conservative, but I still like him. So he said, the thing is, Nigel, we didn't know that we were going to win. We were doing all this, going out there, risking our lives with wings full of fuel. We didn't know we were going to win. We didn't know what was going on. We weren't told anything, it was all secret. But we went anyway, because we figured if they're going to come over here dropping bombs on us, then we're going to go over there and do our bit. And that's what I thought. You know what, I'm going to do my bit. And I was luckier than my dad. I didn't have to risk my life. I just had to trudge the streets of Brighton and Hove in pouring rain all by myself, popping up here and delivering leaflets, and then the next night popping up there delivering leaflets, trying to make it look that I had 50 people working for me. There was only about 5 of us over 3 constituencies, and we had a big impact. And one of the Greens really surprised me because I overheard her at one of the counts say, do you know, this UKIP must be really doing well. They're all over the town. And I thought, haven't they heard of cars? That's just me. No. So getting out there and having a go is important because it's saying, no, look, don't you tell me that I don't count. Don't you tell the people in my street that don't count. Don't you tell the good people who went out and fought for this country and sat in ditches and fought hard for our country. Don't tell them that they don't matter. Don't you tell me that I don't matter. Whatever you do, don't tell Neil Hamilton he doesn't matter. You'll get a right earful. But that's why we've got to go out and do it. All you need is 10 or 12 friends who will sign your piece of paper, and then you'll go out and put your name down. You can hide your address by ticking a box, and then you don't have to do anything. When I first stood in Brighton Pavilion, I thought, whoops-a-daisy, the media are going to swarm on me, they're going to rip me apart. And so I put all my information, everything you could possibly think of, on Facebook. So I could say, look, I'm not trying to hide anything, it's all on there. Guess what happened? Absolutely nothing. I stood, I got quite a few votes, and everyone said, oh, UKIP standing, isn't that marvellous? Nobody took a blind bit of notice of me. In fact, it was really hard work trying to get the media to take any notice of me at all, which is quite ironic. Last thing, a long time ago, as you're bound to know, this planet was covered in archaea, early bacteria, and then advanced bacteria, and then one day along came a new creature, wonderful creature, and these were UKIPers all the way through. There they were in their little puddle, and they were all doing their own thing, and somebody said, let's all get together and be a creature, one of the first multi-cell creatures, let's do that. And they all went, nah, we're okay in our puddle, we're doing fine. And then one day, the puddle dried out, and there was no water left. And somebody stood up and said, see, I told you we should have got together and become a multicellular creature. How about we go for hunting? And they all went, yeah. But one or two said, well, it's better than laying here dying. So let's go out there and go for it, see what we can do. Let's give it a try. So they all got together and became a creature. This is true. You can see they still exist, these creatures. And crawls off in the direction that, can you smell water? It crawls off in the direction of the water and finds a new puddle And that's why slime mould still exists. Well, UKIP still exists because we don't give up trying, because we're absolutely determined that we are not second-rate people. Nobody is second-rate. Everybody is here because of the creatures of the universe, or if you're religious, because God sent us. Listen, everybody matters, and UKIP matters. That's why we're doing this. Like my dad, we're doing our bit. Thank you very much.